Coping with COVID and In It Together SC present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.
In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. And today we're going to talk about a recent article that stated an alarming 40% of those who passed away from COVID had diabetes. We discussed these numbers with Assistant South Carolina Epidemiologist Dr. Jane Kelly. She joins us today. And we look forward to talking about this and more related to COVID. Dr. Kelly, I tell you, these are alarming numbers.
That they are very alarming numbers. I mean, I'm not surprised at the concept that people living with diabetes have more problems with severe disease with COVID, but to learn 40% of the deaths, that is a startling number.
Yeah, we're going to talk with Dr. Kelly a little bit more later on in the show. Then Audrey Moody with Palmetto AIDS Life Support Services talks about the organization's efforts to test, vaccinate, and in light of recent news about masking in public places, how they are encouraging people that masking is still important and necessary. This and more next on Coping with COVID from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. But first, your COVID community updates. Parents with students in Richland County, District 1, were sent a letter about metal detectors being placed in all schools. Superintendent Craig Witherspoon said no new equipment is being purchased, but that the existing equipment that is used during sporting events will be rotated around schools for the remainder of the school year. In light of recent shootings, many district leaders and law enforcement have discussed this option. Regional Medical Center in Orangeburg is offering patients a 50% discount on their unpaid bills at the hospital and physician offices. Now, anyone interested can call 803-809-3833. You can see the information there, and 800-905-7561. And after 2 years of planning, the Panthers have now terminated their agreement to build a facility in South Carolina. Officials for the football team say the city of Rock Hill has not provided funding for the project. SCDHEC has your most up-to-date list of times, dates, and locations for COVID testing, also vaccinations and screenings in and around South Carolina. Visit scdhec.gov for an updated list of times, dates, and locations. You can also still get those 5 free rapid COVID tests by logging on to covidtests.gov. If you've gotten your first 5, you can also order an additional 4. COVID testing is being held in and around South Carolina. Now, if you are a veteran, you can get your COVID test and vaccination at the VA. You can see that information on the screen. They're handling all people in the military. Among the retailers offering COVID vaccinations, Kroger pharmacies are offering them. Check the screen for details. CVS is also offering vaccinations. That includes the ones listed at Target stores. Walgreens is offering COVID vaccines and free N95 masks. And the Brooklyn Baptist Church Vaccine Clinic is continuing to open 7 days a week in West Columbia. You can see that information on the screen. Now, the Comet Bus System not only is offering vaccines at their location in Columbia, South Carolina, at the corner of Main and Sumter, Laurel and Sumter, they're also offering free rides to get your vaccination. So don't miss your shot. You can catch a ride on the Comet for free to get your COVID vaccine. Now, if you or someone you know is having some challenges making their COVID vaccine appointment get set up, can provide free assistance to help you get set up to make your appointment. Several financial resources still are available, including COVID funeral reimbursement funds. FEMA is offering COVID funeral reimbursements if you have a loved one that passed away due to COVID. The SC Bar Association at SC Legal Services has a free toll-free number and website for rental and mortgage help. Lexington County Bill Assistance Program, they still have funding. SC Housing and Dominion Energy has a rental and utilities assistance program. SC Hopes has a 24-hour assistance line from the South Carolina Department of Mental Health. And the Brooklyn Lakeview Empowerment Center is holding registration for free diabetes management classes. That's going to start in May. You can call the information on the screen, Dara Brown, for more information on joining the class. Now, there are several jobs that are available, including Spectrum, and the City of Columbia. They also open house every Wednesday from 8 until 11 at 2198 Colonial Drive. And then, as we told you a couple of weeks ago, Spectrum is actually hiring about 350 people for their West Columbia call center. And these are part-time permanent jobs, which could end up being a full-time job that are available. In it together, and the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. We are streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page and also their YouTube channel. Please go over there, hit like and share and follow. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Man, I tell you, on that Facebook page, you can find all types of great resources to live a healthy and productive lifestyle. So don't forget to check that out, and the In It Together website. Now, we are also streaming live on the Tailor Made Production page on Facebook. That's the home of Coping with COVID. Please go over there, hit like and share and follow, and also go to our YouTube channel. That's where you can find past episodes of Coping with COVID. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We also have a presence on Instagram and also on Twitter. Now, all of the information that I just shared with you, all of the funding, all of the testing, all of the vaccinations, that will be scrolling at the bottom of the screen. So throughout the show, you can see that information, and please post and share this information so we can get the message to the masses. Listen, I know you guys, a lot of you are COVID fatigued, but we have got to still remain diligent, because not only is COVID still around, it is mutating and getting worse and worse. So we want you to stay on top of it. We don't want you to get tired or weary in well-doing. We want you to stay safe and stay healthy. A recent article in Healthline found 40% of people in the United States who died from COVID had some form of diabetes. To discuss this article and more, Dr. Jane Kelly joins us. She is a friend to the show. She is assistant epidemiologist with SCDHEC. Dr. Kelly, it's always a pleasure to have you. I thank you so much for taking your time to speak to us today, because as we said in the open, this is really alarming that 40% of the people who passed away from COVID had some type of diabetes. Do you agree with this finding?
You know, it's not just this one study. Other studies have also substantiated that people who have other medical conditions, and not just diabetes, also high blood pressure, high cholesterol, for reasons that we don't completely understand, they're at increased risk of severe disease. But I have to admit, for it to read 40% of those who died had some form of diabetes really makes you stop and think. Many of those people had poorly controlled diabetes. So, and some of them didn't know they had diabetes until they were admitted to the hospital.
Wow.
So that's part of the concern. It's making sure if you have diabetes that you have it under control. And you can't tell just by how you feel. You really need to see your doctor, find out whether you need to be on medication or changing your diet or being more active. I'm really concerned that people don't realize they're living with diabetes, but don't know that they have it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to jump around a bunch, because you mentioned something that I wanted to mention later, but since you mentioned it now, I want to mention that the Hispanic population has a high incidence here too. The study mentioned that people in the Hispanic community are 2.5 times more likely to have diabetes and not know that they have it.
And not know it.
Yeah. Is this because they're not getting the health care that they need?
Often that's the case, that people, sometimes there's a myth out there that if you have diabetes, you'll know it, you'll feel it, you can tell when your sugar is high. Well, that might be true for some people, but for many people, they have no symptoms. At least not in the beginning. They may not realize that they have diabetes. And, you know, the only way to find out for sure is to go get tested.
To get a test. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, you know, of course, we do hear that if you have diabetes, you'll know it. You'll get a little, lightheaded. You will, what are some of the other ways?
There are symptoms that go with diabetes. I just want to make sure that people understand that sometimes you'll have no symptoms at all. So you can't go by this. But some of the symptoms of diabetes are feeling lightheaded, feeling dizzy, also thirsty. Yes, because you're urinating a lot. And when you urinate a lot, then you're thirsty all the time. You have to drink a lot. Why does that happen? Because when your sugar is high in your blood, some of it leaks through your kidneys and goes out in your urine, and that just pulls more water out of your body, so you get dehydrated.
Right, right. Dr. Jan Kelly joins us. We're talking about a recent article that stated 40% of people in the United States who died from COVID had some form of diabetes. Want to say hi to Mitchell Peacejoy Jen. She's watching. Want to encourage you guys to post and share this information out, because I bet you know somebody, or you are that somebody who has diabetes. We want to go to this first slide that we had up earlier and talk a little bit about this, Dr. Kelly, because it actually kind of shows that, the green, of course, being where COVID is doing well, I guess, for lack of a better term.
That's right. So the green, and you'll notice that South Carolina, all of South Carolina is green right now. That is low levels of community impact by COVID, meaning number of cases, but also how many people are in the hospital, how many people need the intensive care unit, are the hospitals overwhelmed? And the good news is South Carolina, everywhere is green. In fact, most of the country, everywhere is green. Mm-hmm. I do want to inject just a cautionary note. And I did that by kind of blowing up that area of the map up there in the upper right-hand corner. That's New York State. New York State has a bunch of orange in it. That orange means they're having high levels of community impact. And what we've seen previously with COVID is it seems like that this is a common course, that it'll start in New York State and then slowly start to spread across the country. So as I think about, here we are in South Carolina, we got low levels of community spread. That's terrific. But we're also a vacation spot, aren't we? Right. A vacation destination. So there's some concern that, as people travel to South Carolina this summer, it's likely that our cases will go up somewhat. And I have some concern when kids go back to school in the fall. The same thing, we'll be, getting back together. Now, I don't want to fearmonger here. I'm not trying to say, this is something to get scared about. No, this is something to prepare for.
Yes.
So if you are vaccinated and boosted, great. If you're not vaccinated, or maybe you got the first 2 doses, but you didn't bother with that booster, now is the time to go get that booster, to do it ahead of time so you're prepared. So if we get COVID here, as we anticipate we will, that our cases will probably start to go up, if you're vaccinated, you're much more likely to have just a mild illness. Even if you are living with diabetes, you're much more likely to have a mild illness if you're vaccinated.
Yeah. Why are people with diabetes so susceptible to COVID? Not only diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, AIDS, and any kind of condition that is either inflammatory, it seems to be, or compromises your immune system.
Right. Yeah. And you've hit the nail on the head with both of those.
Yeah.
So people think of diabetes as a high blood sugar disease. Well, if you think of diabetes and just glucose, you miss the big picture. There's a lot more complicated things going on with diabetes, because it can affect any part of your body. It can affect your kidneys, your eyes. The good news is, though, if your diabetes is under good control, you're much less likely to get severe COVID. That study with people, 40% of people who died had diabetes. They had poorly controlled diabetes. The people whose blood glucoses were, close to normal did much, much better. Mm-hmm. And as you pointed out, so many people have diabetes and don't know that they have it. Yeah. So again, while we're here in the green zone, while we're here with low levels of COVID, now is the time to get control of everything else in your life. If it's been a long time since you've been to the doctor, now it's time to make an appointment. A lot of people don't even have a primary care physician.
Right.
Now is the time to do so. And if you're worried about, you don't have insurance or you're not sure where to go, you can always start out at a federally qualified health center. That's a place to begin, to find out, get some routine blood work, find out whether you're living with diabetes, routine things like getting your blood pressure checked, just to make sure. It's another one of those hidden illnesses that people don't necessarily know if their blood pressure is high.
Yeah, In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. Dr. Jane Kelly, assistant epidemiologist with SCGHEC, joins us, and we're talking about a recent article that found 40% of those folks who passed away from COVID had diabetes. Now, is it all types of diabetes, type 1, type 2? It is one more severe than the other, Dr. Kelly?
Let's distinguish these. Type 1 diabetes used to be called juvenile onset diabetes because we saw it much more commonly in kids, but it can be seen in adults also. Type 1 is the one where you make no insulin at all, so you can't treat it with pills. These are the people who have to be treated with insulin. Type 2 diabetes is much more common. Maybe 95% of the diabetes we have in the United States is type 2. And kids can get type 2 also. Type 2 can be controlled in many people with food and physical activity by just being careful about what you eat, walking more. When I say physical activity, I don't mean that you have to join a gym or run marathons. Just being more physically active. Walking is excellent exercise. And when you ask the question, is one worse than the other? The key is which one is, who has high blood sugars, poor control. That's the key thing.
Okay. So, and I think you just answered my next question. Can people with diabetes change the trend of being susceptible to COVID?
Absolutely. So that study indicated that was focusing on who had severe disease and who died. Having diabetes by itself doesn't make you more likely to just catch COVID. It's not like you're more likely to get the virus if you're exposed. It's that you're more likely to have severe disease. And that's why it's so important, if you're living with diabetes, to get control of your condition, talk to your healthcare provider, find out what you need to do, but also to get vaccinated and boosted. That booster is really important.
We want to go to the next slide and talk a little bit about what I kind of mentioned. I hit on a little bit is the accompanying diseases, hypertension, high blood pressure versus hypertension, high cholesterol, and we're looking at the second slide now. Tell us a little bit about why all of these, and I just mentioned it, have such an impact on COVID and the severity, not only of whether or not how you process the COVID, how your body is able to bounce back from COVID.
And I know this slide has a lot of medical lingo, medical terminology, but just to go through it, the number one there at the top, essential hypertension, that's high blood pressure. And, it is interesting that little bit more than half of people in the hospital with COVID have high blood pressure. And the reason for that is complicated, not well understood, but let me give you a visual image. People think about, if you get COVID and die from it, you die from pneumonia. Well, that's true. COVID can go to your lungs, but COVID can also cause an inflammation of your blood vessels. And so then if it's in your blood vessels, that means it can affect any part of your body. And high blood pressure is a blood vessel condition. So they kind of go hand in hand. Same thing with that number 2 one, disorders of lipid metabolism. That means basically high cholesterol. And so high cholesterol is also a blood condition. And so having COVID, which causes inflammation of the blood vessels, and high pressure or blockage in those blood vessels, you can see why a person would have complications. But those are both medical conditions that can be modified. You can do something about them.
And that's what I wanted to know, Dr. Kelly, is if people are taking their meds, okay, so you have these conditions, is taking your meds helping you overall?
Absolutely. And one of the most common medications that's used for high cholesterol are the statins. That's like a whole group of them. There's a bunch of different ones, but the names end usually in statin. And what those do is not just lower your cholesterol, they actually reduce inflammation. So that helps with prevention of severe disease, not just with COVID, but with other complications as well.
Yeah. Dr. Jane Kelly joins us. She is assistant epidemiologist at DHEC. In It Together, SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I want to say hi to Richard Lomax with Norvo Nordisk. He asked about COVID and obesity. And Richard, you were reading my mind, because we're going to go to the next slide and actually talk about that, because Dr. Kelly, you say that is really a big thing. Another one of those things about the risk of people that have COVID, not only passing away, but having COVID, have the severity of COVID, is their weight.
Yes, and I think people really underestimate this one. So in this slide, this graph is showing mortality risk, your risk of dying from COVID, and it increases with increasing weight, with that body mass index. And it really starts to take off at about a BMI of 30. Now, what is that? That's that border between being overweight and obese. It really starts to increase at that point. And again, it's because of blood vessel inflammation. When a person becomes overweight or obese, it's not just fat on their outside of their body. There's actually visceral fat, like fat on their, surrounding their internal organs. And some of that can be fatty buildup in their blood vessels as well. And this is another place where I fear people don't recognize that they're at risk. They think, oh yeah, I've put on a few pounds as I got older, a little bit chubby, but that happens to everybody. Well, it's common in the United States, but it doesn't have to happen. People don't have to put on weight as they get older. And I know a couple of minutes ago, I was talking about statins and pills. Really, the best way to control any of these medical conditions is with healthy eating and physical activity. Anybody can out-eat a pill. It's also a matter of what you are doing with your life.
Yeah, I want to get back to that in a minute, but I want to go to the next slide, because I know we talked earlier about people not even realizing that they are overweight.
Yeah. 2/3 of adults in the United States are overweight or obese. So it's the norm. As you look around you, most people are, according to this chart, overweight or obese. Now, who makes up these charts anyway? Who's to say what's overweight, what's obese? This is based on complications. These are not numbers that are just made up by CDC or NIH. This is based on at what weight is there an increased chance of diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease. That's how they define what is overweight. It's defined by when your risk starts to increase with having those other metabolic medical conditions. So for example, on this chart, I'm 5'3". So if I look at 5'3" and then go over to find my weight and look down, I can see, okay, did I fall in the green zone or the yellow zone or higher? So a person can use, and this chart is available in lots of different places. All you have to do is look for body mass index or BMI calculator. And a lot of them, you can just put in your height and weight and find out where you stand.
Right.
And for a lot of people, losing even just 5 pounds, 7 pounds can really lower their risk, again, not just of COVID, but lower their risk of those other diseases we've been talking about. Sometimes people have I'll give you a personal story. My uncle, high cholesterol, and his doctor wanted to put him on medicine. He said, wait. I'm going to change the way I'm eating. I'm going to get out there. And he and my aunt, they would get out there and just walk. And he lost a few pounds. Not an earth-shattering amount, but it was just enough that it really changed his metabolism. And he got his cholesterol down, didn't have to take those pills.
Well, I have a personal story about that too. I'm 5'5", 130 pounds. I think I'm normal, but and I wasn't overweight, but I did have some high blood pressure problems because, again, it was in my family, which I will never think that's fair, because I'm eating right, I'm doing the exercise. But when I had some digestive problems, and so I had to cut, and I'm a vegetarian, so I had to cut back even more. I couldn't eat what was it? It was, I couldn't eat chocolate. I couldn't, high acidic food, lemons, limes, tomatoes, things like that. And when I had to restrict the diet even further, and really committed to walking more than I was before, because I had kind of stopped walking as much when I got the children. He not only did I lose weight, which that was a bonus because I wasn't trying to lose weight, but the doctor said that I was no longer in that risk area of high blood pressure or diabetes, because again, I was kind of right there. I was always right there on that line. And again, because there's diabetes that runs in my family and high blood pressure that runs in my family, not because of anything I was doing, but so just that modification of my eating habits, and combined with just committing to walking 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
And I know sometimes it's just hard to program that in, getting a walking buddy. That's what I do. I have a friend, we each have dogs. We get together and walk our dogs. But that way we stay committed, because we know we've got an appointment to keep, and I don't want to disappoint her. But you also make a good point about it's not all about weight.
Right.
Some people can have a normal weight and yet have high blood pressure.
Yes.
And some of that relates to how much salt is in their diet or their genetics.
Yes.
And you're right. It's not nothing in life is fair.
It's not fair, but it is what it is.
But it is what it is. But I think there's another factor to take into consideration, and that's stress.
Yes.
This has been a really stressful time for a lot of people these past 2 years. So finding ways to cope with stress is so important.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that too, Dr. Kelly, because I think that's another thing we don't really think about, is how our stress level, and we'll have to do a show about that, is how our stress level affects not only our health, but the balance of things that are happening within our body, our sugar, our cholesterol, things like that. All of that affects how our body works.
Absolutely. And so, there are different things that work for different people.
Yeah.
But I always ask people, can you name 3 things that you can do that reduce your stress?
Mm-hmm.
3 things, and that really makes people stop and think, are there 3? They don't have to be complicated things.
Right.
And they don't have to take a long, long time. It's, for some people, it is taking that 1 minute of just letting everything else go, 1 minute, taking 6 deep breaths, but over a long period of time. I when I first heard this, I thought, I was skeptical, but I know that this works for me. So it's to take over 1 minute to have 6 breaths. So it's like on the count of 5, breathe in, and then count of 5, breathe out, and do that 6 times in a row. And it like resets your nervous system somehow.
Yeah.
But whatever works for you, different things for different folks.
Right. I mean, and walking may be that, exercising may be that, just dancing it out may be that, yoga, there are certain different things that work for different people. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. Jane Kelly joins us. She is Assistant Epidemiologist with DHEC. Richard, thank you so much for your question. Mitchell Peace Joy Jen wants to know, Dr. Kelly, can someone improve their HDL levels?
Yes, you can. So there are people who can talk about cholesterol. There's a total cholesterol measurement, but there's also LDL, which is usually called the quote bad cholesterol, and HDL, which is the good cholesterol. Mm-hmm. And do you know what the number one thing that can improve your HDL level? We were just talking about it.
Stress, eliminating stress.
Physical activity, which also helps to reduce stress, but to raise your HDL levels, physical activity. And again, it doesn't have to be running marathons, getting out there and walking, but increased physical activity will increase your HDL levels.
Yeah. I want to ask about meds. I asked about this early, and I really want to kind of get into this because I know a lot of people either don't take their meds regularly for whatever reason. You forget to take them. You can't purchase your meds. If you have high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, all of these things, does it matter if you don't take your meds regularly?
It does matter. You know, you can imagine it on a, you know, you take your medications for a couple of days and then you stop. And let's say it's for high blood pressure. Well, then you're putting your body on a roller coaster with your blood pressure under control, and then it shoots up when you're off the medication. And that variability is bad. Just like, you know, with other medical conditions, you won't necessarily feel it. You won't necessarily know it. And yet it's doing some damage on the, you know, on the cellular level.
Wow. So if you miss a dose for whatever reason, when should you start back taking your meds?
That's so individual. It's really hard to summarize that because it depends upon what the condition is. Something with, for example, with heart failure, congestive heart failure, sometimes the recommendation is to start it back immediately, but not to take an extra dose. Then there are other things like people living with HIV. If they've stopped it for a while and then they're going to restart their medication, sometimes they will have developed some resistance to medication,
that medication,
and they need a different medication. So I don't have, you know, one size fits all answer for that one. That's where it's so important to find a healthcare provider that you like, you know, who works well with you. And that's such an individual thing. Not, you know, if you're not happy with your current healthcare provider, get a different one. If they don't communicate well with you, you know, if it's not their style, isn't your style, find someone that you do feel comfortable with.
And now, I mean, people can get no premium, no cost healthcare. So it is more available than it was before. So it's so important now, particularly with COVID, with all of these other conditions out here, that people are more conscientious of making sure they have a medical provider. Before you go, I want to talk about this final slide that you have, kids and vaccines.
Yes. So in South Carolina, about 1 in 5 children ages 5 through 11 have had at least one dose of vaccine.
Right.
And that means 4 out of 5 of them are unprotected.
Are unvaccinated,
Right. And I understand that
that
most children
are eligible, those that are eligible.
Right. I understand that most children in that age are not going to have severe COVID. If they get COVID, it'll be mild disease. But most is not all.
Right.
Unfortunately, we have had, in the country as a whole, we've had about 400 children in that age group die from COVID. Now, I know that's 400 out of how many millions of children, but those are 400 that are vaccine preventable deaths. So in this slide, we're looking at, 400 children ages 5 through 11, just from December through February, just those 2.5 months. That's when Omicron was really surging. 9 out of 10 of those who got hospitalized were unvaccinated.
Wow.
We have vaccine available for these kids, and vaccine that is safe and effective. We've had millions of doses of vaccine given to children in this age group. Not a single case of myocarditis, that inflammation of the heart muscle that some people, that's been associated with vaccine. 0 cases of it in children this age. Now, once millions and millions and millions of children are vaccinated, it's probably likely that we will see 1 or 2 cases of that inflammation. The important thing here, though, is to know that so few children are vaccinated in South Carolina. We are a vacation spot. People are going to be coming here this summer. COVID is probably going to start circulating again.
And we're going to go other places.
Yeah, COVID's going to start circulating again. And, I think the best thing that we could do to protect children is get them vaccinated now and this summer before they go back to school.
Right. Dr. Jane Kelly is the assistant epidemiologist with DHEC. She has joined us today to talk about COVID and pre-existing conditions, particularly diabetes. We were talking about a recent article that stated 40% of those who died from COVID had diabetes. We also talked about heart disease, high blood pressure, and of course, everything related, obesity, and also children. If you get a chance, please rewind and see the interview in its entirety. If you just joined us, such great information for you and everyone in your family. Dr. Kelly, thank you again so much for joining us today. We always appreciate your willingness to come on and share with us this important information, because it is still important to hear.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for inviting me. Thanks so much for getting the word out.
All right. Thank you. So, Nielsen, with the news of unmasking in public, PALSS, Palmetto AIDS Life Support Services, and they're increasing their testing, their vaccines, and they're encouraging people to continue to mask up. Audrey Moody joins us next on Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. I'm Tre Tailor. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Kimberly Aiken Cockrum. I was Miss America in 1994. As a result of that, I had to learn at a very early age that it's important to take care of my health, to get enough rest, to eat a balanced diet, and to get exercise. Those are principles that I still live by today. Take a moment to visit inittogethersc.org to take an online test to find out if you're at risk of prediabetes and how to join a diabetes prevention program that takes the guesswork out of losing weight, eating better, and being more active. You can learn new ways to stay healthy and sustain those changes over time. When you join, you'll get support from a trained lifestyle coach to help you set and achieve realistic goals. Go to inittogethersc.org. Brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina.
Computers, they're a part of our everyday lives, but when they're not working, they're an everyday problem. So call Computers Unique, your everyday solution. 803-351-5821. Is your computer running slow? Won't turn on? Do you need a screen replaced? Or maybe you just need another computer? Well, Computers Unique is your one-stop shop for all your computer needs. They have a wide variety of new and pre-owned PCs, Macs, and tablets. So call Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall, 803-351-5821. 803-351-5821.
Together, SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, don't forget, we are streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page and the In It Together YouTube channel. Please go over there, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit like, share, and follow on their Facebook page, and also check out all of the great information and resources they have as far as diabetes testing programs, support groups, and more. We're also streaming live on the Tailor Made production page. That's the home of Coping with COVID. Please go over there also, hit like and share and follow. Not only will you receive notifications as to when we go live on Wednesday for Wellness Wednesday, but also on Thursday and Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll also get information about COVID testing, COVID vaccinations, all types of great resources. Now, we're streaming live on the YouTube channel also. We've been doing this for 2 years. So there you can find past episodes of Coping with COVID and Coping with Tre Tailor, and also check us out on IG and also on Twitter. We've been talking today about COVID and the importance in certain communities. Of course, we just talked to Dr. Jane Kelly with SC DHEC. She's the assistant epidemiology. And Audrey Moody joins us now. She is the outreach specialist and program coordinator at PALSS Inc. And thank you so much for joining us today, Audrey.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So you guys have been doing a lot of COVID outreach. Tell me about your efforts, PALSS Inc.
Yes, ma'am. And so PALSS have been working in the community diligently to still get the information out that COVID is still here.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I want to stop you there just to make mention that COVID is still here.
Yes, it is.
I think that, obviously people have COVID fatigue and people have gotten much more relaxed, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But as you say, you're out there in the community and COVID is still here. Let's talk about what you are seeing with your COVID outreach.
Yes. And so going out in the community, what we've noticed is that people are still hesitant of getting the vaccination. And from communicating with the community, because our goal is to get data to find out why they're not getting vaccinated and if they have, what led them to get vaccinated. And so one of the things that we are realizing is that a lot of people feel like if they get vaccinated, it's going to give them COVID. A lot of people also are fearful of getting the vaccination just because they feel like they don't know what's in the vaccination. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of myths out there of why people are not getting vaccinated. And so, yes, COVID has slowed down, but it is still here, as I said earlier. And the reason why I feel like it's very, very important to still get the information out there, offer the vaccination as well as the testing, the COVID testing, is because people are still dying from COVID.
Right, right, right. That's so interesting that you say that, Audrey, because I think we heard a lot about that in the early stages of COVID, where people thought you could get COVID by taking the vaccination, or that they were unsure about it. But even now, 2 years later, people still have the same questions and concerns, despite the fact that so much information, real information, has been disseminated.
Exactly. And so another thing I wanted to touch on is when COVID first came out, the numbers were so high and people were dying really, really fast. And so what I've noticed today is, though those numbers went down, and though you don't hear it as much in the media as you used to, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people feel like, oh, it's not that bad anymore. It's not that serious. And it is still very serious, because though you don't hear it as much in the media, it's still happening. It is still happening. And so our goal is to still let people know that though you don't hear it as much in the media, please still protect yourself. Still wash your hands, still wear your mask, still be mindful of, the crowds. And so it is just so important that even while we're out there, we're still giving out PPP kits, which consist of masks, hand sanitizer, little cans of Lysol, sanitizer wipes, because those things are very important in protecting yourself as well as others too.
Yeah, I would think that one, you say that, people feel like it's gone because they don't hear it as much. But what we're also hearing in the media, and, when we just talked to Dr. Jane Kelly, we're hearing more of the variants. So while regular COVID may or may not be as prevalent, the variants are. And, this latest variant is much more aggressive. So again, I think that not only do people need to be more conscientious, but because there's so many more people that are relaxing their regime, they're not washing their hands, they're not wearing the mask. So many people are not doing these things. That's why people need to do them more, because I think people are probably even more susceptible to COVID.
Definitely. And it's just so important because to me, I look at COVID as a domino effect. One gets sick, the next gets sick. And you don't know who has COVID if you're not getting tested, because even though we have a new variant now, but there are people who are in the community, they may have a little slight cold, a little slight cough. And if they haven't been tested, again, you don't know if you have COVID. And then that's what tells spread it to someone else. And so you're not only wanting to be safe for yourself, but you want to be safe for the community. And then definitely, I think of our elderly people who have compromised immune systems. I think of where I work at PALSS, and we do a lot of HIV testing, STI testing. And so we also work with people who have compromised immune systems.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we offer it to everyone. And one of the most important things I like about our COVID outreach team is we're not only going out there offering vaccines in the community as well as COVID testing, but we are also providing transportation for those in rural areas who can't get to doctor's offices or clinics or COVID testing sites. And so we're making that available to say, hey, if you want to get vaccinated and you can't make it, we will come pick you up and drop you off. So that is one of the things that we feel is very important right now.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, who you are targeting, what they can get. And I love that you say transportation is provided. So when you're out in the community, one, where are you going? What can people get? I know you say you give them this testing kit. And who can get the transportation, Audrey?
Yeah, so our transportation is available so we really have been targeting like the 5 counties, but we definitely want to make it available. And when I say 5 counties, I'm sorry, let me go back. So we do Richland, Lexington, Kershaw, Richland, Lexington, Kershaw, Barnwell, as well as Newberry. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So those are the 5 counties that we are actually targeting right now. But we are willing to go as far as 30 miles, 45 miles to go and vaccinate them in their area. We're also doing a lot of, like college campuses. We are on college campuses very frequently. We just did an outreach event at USC. That was a great turnout. We did see over 100 people. We thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
And so we are doing a lot of outreach, not just for COVID, but for sexually transmitted infections as well as HIV testing.
Awesome. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor. We're talking to Audrey Moody. She is the outreach specialist and project coordinator for COVID at PALSS Inc. And PALSS is Palmetto Aid Life Support Services. But, I've been calling it PALSS Inc., Audrey, as you know, because you guys are kind of positioning yourself as more than just a organization that focuses on those who are in the HIV/AIDS community. As you said, it's all sexually transmitted diseases and pretty much everyone.
Definitely. And so we have seen a tremendous increase in our testing services as well. And like COVID, when I look at HIV and I look at COVID, I really look at them as both two things that has been a epidemic in our society. That has hit us hard, and we need people in the community still educating. It's so important, and as well as just letting people know that there are people here that is willing to talk to you, help educate you, help walk you through the process, counsel you. So we not only are in a community giving testing, but we are trying to help people get a better understanding and let them know that they're not alone.
So are there certain areas, I know you could go to the colleges, awesome, go in the community. You talked about the 5 counties. Are there certain areas within those areas that you focus on, or can people request that you come to their community, to their college, to their organization?
Definitely. So today our team is out doing outreach, and we are in Orangeburg. And so request is definitely an option. And so we just want the information to get out there. We want to help as many people as we can. So yes, requests will be great. If you know there is a community of individuals that want the services that we offer, yes, we have a mobile testing unit, and we load it up with our community outreach workers, and we go out there and do the job that's so needed in our communities.
All right. So if people want more information about having the mobile testing unit come out and getting the resources that you guys provide, how can they do that?
Yes, you can do that by calling our office, which is 803-779-7257. You can also go on our PALSS Facebook page and send a message through there. You can also email. My email is Audrey, AUDREY, .Moody, MOODY, @PALSS.org.
All right, we can see that information on the screen. Again, PALSS Inc., Palmetto AIDS Life Support Services, has services for COVID testing, vaccinations, and any type of sexually transmitted disease. So again, which is so very important. Audrey, I know you said you had a big event on the USC campus. You're over in Orangeburg today, where there are several colleges, Claflin, Voorhees, Orangeburg Technical College, and that particular community is highly susceptible for not only COVID vaccine testings, but also the sexually transmitted diseases.
Definitely, it really is. And so we have seen a tremendous turnout in all colleges that we have been going to. We have been going to Benedict, we have been going to Allen. Today they are at Clafton. We have been going to USC. We have even been going to apartment complexes. So we do not discriminate as far as our locations and where we go. We go where the people need us.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about the fact that, people, one, are still hesitant, and people, two, feel like it's gone. They have no need to mask up anymore. What do you say to those people who don't still see the importance of being safe?
I just want to tell you that it is critical when you only have one life to live to take care of your life. When something hits our society, you want to do everything in your power to protect yourself and your family and your friends and loved ones and those around you. Just because the COVID numbers are down and some of the states are taking down the mask mandate, still protect yourself because you want to make sure that you are safe, your family is safe, and your loved ones and those around you. COVID is still out there. Though the numbers are down, people still have COVID. And so the best way to do that is wash your hands, sanitize your hands, wear your mask, avoid huge crowds, Lysol places that you touch, car doors, doorknobs. You just want to make sure that you are doing everything in your power to make sure that you and your family is safe.
Right, absolutely. And you say not only inside, but outside too.
Definitely so. Definitely so.
Yeah, because people feel like, I'm sure, one, that if I'm outside, I don't have as big a chance or, susceptibility to catch it. But you think especially when there are large crowds.
Yes, because if you think about it, if one person has COVID, and you're around that person and you don't know they have COVID, and then, you wind up having COVID, how would you know? Let me go here too. How would you know if you have COVID if you're not getting tested anymore? Testing has also slowed down as far as COVID is concerned. You see a lot of these COVID sites set up for testing. You ride by, you may see one car. Continue getting tested. A lot of COVID testing is free.
Yeah.
So it costs you nothing to still make sure that you are safe, because by you getting tested and making sure you're safe, you're making sure everyone around you is safe as well.
Yeah.
So each one teach one.
Yeah. Yeah. Because not only are there a lot of people not vaccinated, some of our little ones, the little ones under 5, they're not able to get vaccinated yet. So.
And that is so true. And just to get on a personal level, for one point, I have a 3-year-old. I remember when COVID first came out, I heard so many of the myths myself. This is one of the reasons why my passion is so real right now for COVID, because I had that hesitancy of getting vaccinated. But I thought about my daughter.
Yeah.
And I felt it was a need to make sure that she was safe above all else. And so that's why I advocate so much for COVID, because the same mindset I had in the beginning, because I wasn't sure, once I got educated and got the information, I was able to say, hey, there are people out there that felt the same way I felt. Let me share with them what I've learned and what I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Audrey Moody is an outreach specialist and project coordinator for COVID at PALSS Inc., Palmetto A Life Support Services. You can see her information on the screen. If you want more information, as she said, they come out, they bring their mobile unit. They can provide COVID vaccinations, COVID testing, and also information on any type of STDs. For more information, you can contact the information on the screen. Hey, Audrey, thank you so much for what you, Carmen, and the folks at PALSS Inc. is doing for and in our community. We appreciate you so much. And thank you so much for joining us today on Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Aiken-Cochran. As Miss America, I know that taking care of yourself is important. Part of taking care of your health is knowing if you're at risk of type 2 diabetes. Prediabetes is serious and puts you at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. Visit inittogethersc.org. Take an online test to find out your risk and join a diabetes prevention program.
The Comet gives me a reliable source of transportation.
It's very convenient to me, and they have wonderful drivers.
It's clean and it builds community. It's fun to meet people.
It makes me feel like really independent. It's just fun.
It's always going to be there and it gets me everywhere I need to go.
We try to ride every single day. Comedy is our livelihood.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us for Wellness Wednesday. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. If you are just joining us, please hit the replay button. Check out the great interview we had with Dr. Jane Kelly, Assistant Epidemiologist with DHEC. She talked about the alarming study in a recent medical magazine that stated 40% of people that passed away from COVID had diabetes. We also talked about other pre-existing conditions, including obesity. That's a condition. Also, heart disease and high blood pressure. Also, Audrey Moody with Palmetto AIDS Life Support Services, PALSS Inc. Now they are referring to themselves as, because they are offering their services for everyone, and anyone are doing some amazing work in our community with testing, vaccinations, and also encouraging people that they should still mask up, particularly if they're in large crowds. Listen, if you have a story or initiative that could help someone cope with COVID, please email booking@copingwithtreTailor.com, booking@copingwithtreTailor.com. Or if you have a product or service that could help someone cope with COVID, please email copingwithtreTailor@gmail.com. Both of those email addresses are scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Listen, we would love for you to be a proud sponsor, just like In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. They sponsor Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. Also, Javis Financial Services, the Black Expo Black Pages, which is coming to town May 21st and the 20th. Kiara Kiki Sheard, Anthony Anderson, and so much more. Of course, Agape Counseling and Training Services, the Comet Bus System, and Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. Now, tomorrow, Nancy Smith is going to join us. She is the general manager with the State Fair. The food fair is in town. Went out there yesterday, ate, drank, and been merry. We're going to actually go live with her later on today and again on tomorrow. Also, Emily Gaston is with Keep Midlands Beautiful. She's going to tell us about Earth Day. And then on Friday, Carl Solomon and Aaron Bishop talk about their new initiative and how they are helping people in the community and paying tribute to them with their Sold Out Saturdays. That and more coming up this week on Coping with COVID. As always, I leave you with this reading. We're reading Conversations with God from Cheryl Mims Williams. This is such a great devotional. It includes scripture and some of her journal writings. This one says, Father, you have been a shoulder to lean on. You have been my confidant and my guide. You have been here for me when there was no one else that I could depend on. Not my husband, not my parents, not my children, not my friends, no one. You, Father, are always here to encourage me and help me stay focused. I know I've desired other people to come and help me, but you reminded me that your grace is sufficient. His grace is sufficient and oh so needed. This is Conversations with God with Cheryl Mims Williams with Agape Counseling and Training Services. I'm Tre Tailor. Thank you again so much for joining us on Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Action Council. Until the next time, I wish you peace, abundant blessings, stay well, take care, God bless you. And also, you heard Dr. Jane Kelly say it, you still need to wear your mask over your nose and under your chin. We'll see you tomorrow.
Coping with COVID and In It Together SC present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Action Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.